Hello YouTube. Thank you guys for clicking on the video. We're going to take this giant slab of monkeypod and we are going to turn it into a dining room table. We are not going to turn it into a giant long rectangular dining room table though. We are shooting for a 72-inch round dining room table. If you'd like to see how we're going to do that, stay tuned. First step was to cut the slab in half at the shop where I bought it so that I could fit it in my man van and haul it back to Fort Worth from Houston. Next step was to do a little bit of shop cleanup. Bonus points for anybody in the comments that can tell me what that apparatus is on the right-hand side of your screen that I put a cover on. We just got to make some room because it's about as big a project as my tiny shop can handle. So we cut the slab in half where I picked it up so that it would fit in the van for transport back to Fort Worth. And I'm now trying to figure out how to line them up so that I can cut a straight edge on each one. Kind of see the lines I think that I've drawn. I'm obviously trying to cut away any sapwood. I don't want any sapwood at the spot where they join. But I will cut that straight edge down two edges of these and then join them there and then cut the circle out of the joined piece. The challenge I'm running into now is with this guy, it's just a little bit narrower than I thought it was going to be. So what I really am trying to do is make a 72-inch round. So what I need is when I cut this line, I need 36 inches from that line because that line then will become the center of the table. I need 36 inches from that line to here, and I don't want any sapwood on the table from this side. And the problem I'm running into, at least on this side with this configuration, is from here to this sapwood is about 33 inches, which would yield me a 66-inch table instead of a 72-inch table. So I'm gonna flip this one and see if there's less sapwood on the other side and see if I can get the measurements I'm looking for with just a slightly different configuration. So now what I'm wondering is, how would it look if I left that sapwood and it kind of was a stripe right down the middle? If I described that way to my wife, by the way, she would absolutely hate it without even visualizing it. So that would be a way that I could get the 72 inches I'm looking for. Because right now, this second line right here is the farthest. This is the farthest in this direction that I can make the center point and still get 36 inches this way. So, and then from this, if this is my center point, from here to there, to that sapwood, if I include the sapwood, is about 35 inches. If I don't include the sapwood, it's 33 and a half, 34 inches. So I either sacrifice the full 72-inch round to get rid of the sapwood, or I include sapwood somewhere. I include it in the middle, or I include a small bit out on that edge. Or the join isn't the center of the table. That's the other option. Is I can get 72 inches from this sapwood to that sapwood. After I cut these, I can get the full 72 inches, but this would not be in the center of it. The center line would be somewhere here. I think that would drive me nuts. So that's what I'm figuring out right now. And we'll see what happens. like that flow of light thing down to the very middle.
No.
All right, so she hated it. She hated it so much it caused my phone to fall. The idea of having the sapwood run through the middle. I think it would be kind of cool the more I think about it. I mean, just barely cut as much as I need to make that edge straight, and the same with that one. And leaving, and that sapwood going from that piece to that piece, I think would hide that seam down the middle really nicely. But I don't want a stripe down the middle of my table, were the exact words. I could have told you those were gonna be the exact words before I asked, but she doesn't know yet that means she's gonna have a small amount of sapwood out here, but she is, so we'll see. I'm gonna cut this, and then I'm gonna attempt to rig to cut this one with the saw facing the same way. So essentially resting the straight edge, or resting the track on this guy and shimming this guy up so that they're level, so that if the blade isn't perfectly 90, then they'll still fit perfectly together. So that's next. These slabs to start with were 2 to 2.5 inches thick. So I make these track saw cuts in 2 passes, go about 1 inch on the first pass and then finish off on the second pass. I think I tripped the breaker or tripped the fuse on the power strip that I was plugged into there, so switched it to the wall. I've never been super confident in my track saw cuts being perfectly square. I feel like there's a little bit of play between the saw and the track. But making the best of it here, and we'll see how it plays out as we move forward. Okay, so we got set up for the cut on the second slab. What I did, like I mentioned, was I shimmed these so that they were level with each other. And then I've got the track resting on this slab mostly, lining up with the line on this slab. And that's, I had an anticipation that I might need to do that. And then after I cut this first slab, I checked the cut with a square and it's not exactly square. So if I can cut this slab going the same direction, then that slight bit out of square will be the same on both and they'll still get a nice tight fit. So that's what I'm doing now. I'm gonna cut this second slab. Normally you would flip the track around and come down the other slab in the other direction. But like I said, I just feel like there's a little play there. So I wanted to see if I could run the track saw in the same direction down both slabs, thereby canceling out any error in the cut. But you'll see here shortly, this just did not work the way that I wanted it to. Lines up. I still got the shims in there, so it may not be exact yet, but let's just see. Okay, pretty good there. Let me re-shim that. Oh. Okay. Oh, that's pretty good. So the next step here is we're going to square a line from the center line that way. Create a square line so that we can measure along that squared line to the widest point before the sapwood. That will determine the final diameter of the circle. I was shooting for 72. We're not going to get 72 without including some sapwood, so I think we'll probably be about 66. I think a squared line from the center out to the edge will probably maximum about 33 inches. So I'm going to square that up, draw the line to measure that so that I can get a my track for my track saw set, so that then I can cut a straight line here and a straight line on that end, so that when I get ready to clamp this, I have straight edges, straight sides for the clamps to hold on to. That's where we are. That's what we're gonna do now. All right, so the goal for today is we want to get the dominoes cut into the two slabs. I am eager to get them glued up. I think the order of operations from here is going to be to cut the dominoes, and then as much as I want to glue them up now, I think I want to first flip each one over, tape the bottom for the epoxy fills that I have to do. I got a couple of cracks and a bunch of knots, a few holes on that side that I'll have to fill. And I think I want to flip them and get those taped off on the bottom before I glue them together, just because it's going to be infinitely harder to flip it once I glue them. So I think that's the order of operations. I may get excited and just cut the dominoes and then glue it. We'll see. All right, shooting a YouTube video, I have to pause so I can consult YouTube to remind me how to pull the front of this off so that I can change that blade. We're gonna drill them about 45 millimeters deep. I want them to be long. I want them to have plenty of gluing surface inside the mortise, but I don't want them to be so long that that when I go to clamp it, it's such a struggle because I will have, I don't know how many I've got drawn, probably 10 down the length of this. I don't want it to have to crank it so hard to get it in so much because they're so long. So I don't know, 45 millimeters feels about right. That's what we're gonna go with. So when I marked these out, I had to, on each end, when they were together, this was a full X. The other half of the X is on the other slab. And that is where the circle will come down. I'm embarrassed to admit that I have built tables in the past where I wasn't as careful marking where the table was going to be cut to length, or maybe I had to make an adjustment in where it was going to be cut to length at some point, and I went to cut it to length and I cut right through a domino. So in this particular case, I put a domino on either side of that X, but the circle should come right through there. Gives me a couple inches on either side to work with, just in case anything changes. I drilled all of these on the tight setting, and I think on the other slab, I will probably do the middle couple on the tight, just to pull those in, and then I was a little loose with some of my lines on these outer ones, and so I may switch to the loose setting on the outer ones. All right, so here's what I've got. I bought this slab, and again, it started as one giant slab, as having been flattened already, and it had been. I talked to the guy, it had gone through his big router sled and been flattened, but then I think it sat for a little while in his shop, and it developed a cup after he had flattened it. So what I've got is, on this slab, I've got a cup going this way. And on this slab, because I flipped it, I've got a cup going that way. So it's about 1/8 of an inch, maybe a little bit more. And I really don't want to run these back through my router sled, lose a bunch of thickness. My router sled is not the best. I'm afraid I'm just gonna start chasing something that I can't ever get ahead of, and I'm just gonna router sled these things down to 1 inch thick. So What I'm gonna do, my plan at this point is that I'm gonna glue them up, and I'm gonna see what I'm left with at that point. I've also got a little bit of thickness difference between the two slabs at the ends. And so, again, I don't want to start chasing that and router sled the whole thing down to the thickness of the smallest part, the smallest point. So I'm going to cut the circle out. I'm going to glue it together. I'm going to cut the circle out, and I'm going to see what I'm left with. And whatever I need to adjust from there, I'm going to do with a hand plane. This is going to be a great hand planing learning experience for me, because you couldn't even call me a novice with a hand plane. I've done a little bit, but yeah, we're just going to see, just because I do not want to run these through my router sled and lose a bunch of thickness. So for better or worse, right or wrong, I'm going to glue them together. I'm going to cut the circle out, and then I'm going to go after it with a hand plane to flatten the top as much as need be in order for it to be a functional dining room table and look beautiful. Those are the two goals. All right, so I pulled this one down. I just wasn't happy with the center joint as it was laying out. I pulled this one down, and I took the hand plane. They're both off square a little bit. They were off square in the same, in opposite directions somehow. I don't know how I managed that, but I did. Even though I tried to run the track saw down the same direction on both slabs, doesn't matter. This one was a little bit worse, so I pulled it down. I was afraid to video it myself trying to wrestle that thing down. And I was afraid to video myself fiddle farting around with that hand plane, but we did it, and I think it's much better squared now. So I'm hoping, and I actually undercut it just a little bit because the other one is out of square in that direction. Anyway, I'm hoping that the joint will be a little bit tighter now. Here's the thing, if you've made it this far, you've earned the right, you deserve to watch me try and get that back up there. So here we go. So after pulling that one slab down and working on the edge with a hand plane, I put them back together, and as I clamp them together, you can see the outside edges rise up off the table. It's just becoming clear that I don't have two square edges to try and join up here. The cups in each of the slabs is just too much to overcome, and so I've got to take a different route, I think. I'm going to end the video here, and we'll pick it up in part 2. Thanks for watching.